Hey everyone, welcome to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. In the Mobile User Acquisition Show, we talk about how to use mobile user acquisition strategies to grow your app quickly and capital efficiently. The Mobile User Acquisition Show is presented by me, Shamant Rao, mobile growth leader and founder and CEO of the mobile growth consulting firm Rocketship HQ. Each episode includes strategies, tips, and pointers from the leading edge of mobile user acquisition that you can use to unlock tremendous growth for your app in a sustainable and capital efficient manner. Our guest today is Evan Horowitz, CEO at Movers+Shakers, a creative agency specializing in branding campaigns on TikTok. Evan and his team have spearheaded massive campaigns on the platform, resulting in many campaigns with over 1 billion views and a total of 90 billion views across their campaigns. By the way, that's not a typo, and we'll talk about the math of how that is done in this episode. Evan was an early adopter of TikTok as a marketing channel and has seen its growth into an established brand channel over the last couple of years. In today's conversation, he breaks down his team's process for creating and architecting viral video campaigns and speaks to the idiosyncrasies of the TikTok algorithm that can result in massive hyper-virality, resulting in billions of views. He also speaks to how virality-driven storytelling can be compressed into a 15-second time span. We talk about so much more, and I'm excited to bring this episode to you today. I'm very excited to welcome Evan Horowitz to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. Evan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Evan, I'm very thrilled to have you because certainly you guys have done some very interesting and very amazing things with TikTok, with virality in ways that I find truly inspiring, truly stunning. We'll dive into a lot of that today. I'm thrilled to get into that. But a good place to start would be the beginning. The last time we spoke, you said about 2 years ago, nobody knew about TikTok, not even us. And at the time, what inspired you to look at TikTok as a platform that could have some sort of potential?
Yeah, so that was back in 2019. Movers+Shakers were a creative agency on a mission to spread joy. And another thing that's relevant to answer your question is that we do a lot of storytelling using original music to connect brands to culture. And so when TikTok started to develop as a platform, it was interesting to us for those two reasons. It was a very joyful place, and it was all about musical storytelling. And that was just something that resonated with the way that we were already using joy and music to help brands cut through the clutter on social. Our first project on TikTok was with e.l.f. Cosmetics, and it was actually their idea. They were interested in TikTok because they love being first to market on new platforms. And actually, e.l.f. was already buzzing on TikTok. The hashtag e.l.f. Cosmetics had several million views before they had ever entered the platform. But when we looked at it together, we realized that we can figure this platform out pretty quickly. That was in the summer of 2019, and you could count on one hand how many brands had ever done anything on the platform. So it was pretty uncharted territories.
Yeah. So the fact that you guys were very music driven fit right into what TikTok was all about. And then, of course, e.l.f. was a very, very big campaign. Do you want to speak to kind of metrics that first campaign of yours hit?
I'll start at the end. It was the biggest campaign in TikTok US history for quite some time. And it achieved a level of virality both in and off the platform that was just totally unprecedented, with over 5 million user-generated videos, 5 million people creating videos to join the campaign, billions and billions and billions of views. And more than that, the original song that we wrote went massively viral in the music world. It hit number 4 on Spotify's global viral chart. It was in the top 50 from Australia to the Netherlands. E.l.f. is eyes, lips, face. That was what the whole
Yeah.
campaign was a recognition thing around that. Because most people don't know, E.l.f. stands for eyes, lips, face. So the eyes, lips, face brand anthem ended up being played at NBA stadiums to hype up the crowd
Wow.
before games. It's funny because when we first started working with TikTok to create that campaign, we said we were going to do an original song. And they said, no, you don't do that. You license an existing hit song. That's how these campaigns are run. And we said, well, we really like writing original branded music. Movers and Shakers are really good at that. And so they said, okay, we'll see how it goes. And now that's the playbook. Pretty much every big campaign now, it's just obvious in the standard that you would create original branded music for it. But at that time, it was not recommended.
Wow, very cool, very cool. And I definitely have first-hand experience of how protective a lot of brand managers can be around their brand. So it's amazing that you guys produce something that was cool with them, but also produce the kind of results that it did.
Yeah, well, it's always a challenge. A lot of brands come to us because they're really attracted to our ability to help them connect to culture through music. But it's also scary for brand managers because very few of them have ever created branded music before. They might have a 300-page brand book, but it doesn't mention music. And no, I've never seen a brand book that mentions music. But fortunately, in Movers and Shakers, we have a process we take our clients through that really helps them figure out and us figure out with them what would that musical chapter of their brand book look like, and then how to actually put that into practice. And it's actually super fun.
Indeed, perhaps a topic for our next episode. But for now, I'd love to dive into what made that campaign and a lot of other campaigns you've done really take off. So in what fundamental ways is TikTok's algorithm or virality different from the way things go viral on Insta or Snap or YouTube or Facebook or what have you?
Yeah. There's one main fundamental difference in virality on TikTok versus the other platforms. And that's that on most platforms, as a creative agency, when we make a video for YouTube or Instagram, that video could go viral. Video could get millions or tens of millions of views. But there's a whole extra dimension that TikTok adds where it's not just that video that can go viral, but we can start a snowball of viral video creation on TikTok. When we talk about that e.l.f. example, 5 million user-generated videos. So it wasn't just one video that could go viral. Now we have 5 million, and every single one of those could potentially go viral. And that's how you get these billion-view campaigns, because that's all the views on all of those videos. And this dynamic of a snowball of video creation, it just doesn't exist on any other platform. And that is just the norm on TikTok. There's always trends that are happening on TikTok, not related to brands, most of them, but there's all of a sudden everyone's making a video about this, or everybody's making a video with that song, or everybody's telling this type of story, and people just jump in and they create their own videos. And that's why now brands can start these trends, and you can unleash a snowball of people making a commercial for you, which is just totally crazy.
Which is insane, and which can get up to Spotify's worldwide charts. I think a lot of people, myself included, don't quite appreciate how that snowball effect really happens. Which brings me to my next question, which is a lot of your campaigns have billions of views, and across all your campaigns, you've gotten to, I believe, 90 billion views. That's a B, and we'll very likely have the word billion somewhere in the headline of this episode, given there are like 6 billion people on Earth. Help us understand how the math behind that works.
Yeah, people are watching a lot of TikToks. I guess that's the takeaway. We ran a campaign with Amazon recently, I think got 7 billion views. The way that those numbers are counted, you add up all of the views on all of those videos that use the campaign hashtag, that's how you get to that billion number. So it's the cumulative amount of all of those views together.
Understood. So if you had 5 million user-generated videos, each of those could have like 1,000 views each, or 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 views. All of that cumulatively gets into the billions.
Exactly. And to your point about how many people are on the planet, obviously every single one of those people didn't see our challenge, but that's the nature of these trends on TikTok is you see a lot of them from the same trend. And actually the TikTok algorithm knows once you start liking a trend, it will keep showing you ones from that trend. If we look at the Amazon challenge, we wrote this song called Pajama Jam. It was before the holidays. And it was just about rocking out in your holiday PJs. It was super fun. A given person probably saw 5, 10, 20 different Pajama Jam videos over the course of a few weeks during the campaign. And so that person counted for many, many views, just that one person. Which is what you want as the brand, right? You want people to just keep seeing your brand coming through their feed. That's exactly what's so cool about this is that Amazon got to come through that person's feed, let's say 20 times, but each time was through a different video that was created by a member of the general public.
Yeah, that's a brand's dream, right? Be omnipresent.
It does drive measurable brand lift, which is pretty amazing.
It sounds like a lot of that is aided by the TikTok algorithm, right? If a user is really engaging with 3 of your Amazon videos, the TikTok algorithm just shows a whole lot of them. Can you speak to how the algorithm plays into all of this?
The TikTok algorithm is very smart. I think it's one of the reasons why TikTok has just taken off faster than any social app in history. It really does get to know you and what you're interested in. In fact, if you look at my TikTok feed and we look at your TikTok feed, you're going to think we're on different apps because it really does push you into a world that is going to be unique to you and curated for you. For example, I'm not a pet person. I didn't grow up with pets. I'm still a little scared of dogs. I don't really see any pets on my TikTok feed, but lots of people see tons of dogs, puppies, or cats or rabbits or whatever they're into. It's just a whole different world that they're in. So when you're a brand and you're starting a trend and people start watching your trend, the algorithm is going to show them more things from your trend. And that's really cool. And that also tends to help you connect with your target audience too, because in general, when we're creating and we're architecting one of these trends or challenges, we're thinking about who's the target audience that we really want to get excited by this. And those people will tend to get served a lot more of our campaign videos.
Right. So it sounds like a lot of what you're doing is getting a campaign to that tipping point where the algorithm takes over and that snowballing effect really starts to kick in.
That's a great way to put it, yeah, because it really is like it's spinning up the flywheel. Obviously, these campaigns are not truly viral in the sense that there is a bunch of money spent jumpstarting them, low to mid to high 6 figures, depending on how we architect it. But that gives it the push out of the gate. And then we see a huge range in performance in these type of campaigns. And that range is driven, as you said, really by the organic pickup in the algorithm. And the algorithm is just a reflection of the organic pickup. If people are really into the challenge that we've designed, then it's going to go really, really high. We see a lot of brands launch campaigns that unfortunately were kind of lame. And you can see that when you look at them. You can still spend a ton of money on the media buy, but it's not going to really trend very much. So that's where the creative, the challenge design, the music, it's also important.
Yeah. And what I find impressive about you guys' work is you have a process to very consistently architect virality. And I have heard you use the word process at least a couple of times today on this interview. And that process has relatively consistently gotten a lot of brands to 1 billion views within 24 to 48 hours. So what does that process look like? And what would you say are the building blocks of a campaign like this?
Yeah, I guess I'm very process oriented. The first time we did it, when we go back to the e.l.f. campaign, we were just feeling our way through it. Now we've run so many of these massively viral TikTok challenges that we really have gotten it much closer to a science. There's still a lot of artistry in it. It starts with the brand and their objectives. And different brands come to this type of campaign for different reasons. In fact, we turn away and discourage a lot of people from doing this type of campaign. There's many ways for brands to play on TikTok and in social in general. And sometimes people start asking us, well, we want that big viral TikTok campaign. There's reasons why it's not a good fit for a lot of brands or a lot of types of campaigns. So that's the first thing, is just making sure there's alignment. And then thinking about how do we develop the challenge concept? What are we inviting people to do? And we design that around the brand, the DNA of the brand, the value, the vibe, the energy of the brand, as well as any specific product or aspects of the brand that we're including. Once we decide what the challenge is, then we go right into architecting the music. And those two really go hand in hand. The music really supports the challenge, and it's really the canvas on which you paint the challenge. So it's totally different. Music on TikTok, whether it's a challenge or just a post that we make for a brand's channel, music is integral to the storytelling, much more so than other platforms. On other platforms, you can just throw on some background music onto a good spot and then you're fine. But here, when we architect the music, we're actually planning second by second, those 15 seconds of the TikTok, what that will be. And we're writing the music to have a narrative arc that supports that. So that's the second big step. And then once we finish that, we go into working with our influencers, because there's always a cadre of influencers who we recruit and we select very strategically. There's people on TikTok who are known for sparking trends. It's very different. It's not necessarily the same people from the people who you'd hire for a product campaign, but we recruit a cadre of influencers to help kick off the campaign and just show that this party has started. And once we have all that together, we're ready to put it out into the world and launch. And at that point, it's just crazy, because as soon as we launch, and then you just keep hitting refresh, and you see the views go up and up and up. It's just totally wild.
Yeah, crazy. I like how structured that process is, to the extent that you could call it very consistent across brands. You could apply it to every brand. I'm curious, so what happens after that last stage that you described? You go launch. What does that look like?
Well, it's interesting because to some extent you just sit back and watch, much more so than other campaigns. It's that so much of the work is after launch. Here, actually, most of the work is before launch, which is interesting. But you just start to see it go. And there are levers that we can pull once it launches to help steer it. We can add firepower with more media. We can add more influencers. But largely, it's just a leap of faith when you hit go.
Yeah. What are some of the levers that you can pull after a campaign like this is live?
The main thing is adding fuel to the fire. And when we work with our clients, sometimes we do that because the campaign's not quite as big as we want it to be. So we'll recruit more influencers. We can add more media to get more reach for the sponsored content. Other times we actually have campaigns that are going so big, that's when our clients will unlock even more budget because they realize that we've hit gold. And so we've dumped another hundreds of thousands of dollars into more and bigger influencers, let's say, to just make the trend seem and be even bigger after launch, just because we see, wow, this is going to be huge. Let's make it really huge.
Yeah, right. If it's going big, why not go bigger? One common misconception that a lot of people would have would be, oh, why do you need budgets for something like TikTok? I mean, a lot of people might wonder and ask, why don't we just make this amazing viral video or start this trend and just leave it out there? Why do we need budgets at all? How would you answer that question?
It's a good question. A lot of brands, they first call Movers and Shakers because they've seen stockouts on one of their products and they didn't know why. And then their intern sent them a TikTok or something that had gone viral about their product. And then that led to stockouts. And that happens quite a bit, actually. I could give you many anecdotes where that's happened. So then those brands will call us and they'll say, hey, we want that again. Can you make us go viral so that we have this big sales lift? That I don't know how to do. The unpredictability of social media is things actually just do go viral on their own. What we do is a type of calculated virality. To your point, there is quite a structure and process around that. And it has a lot of moving parts, namely a bunch of influencers that we hire to really get something jump-started, and often a big media component as well. And that's where the budget comes in.
What does that media component look like for somebody that's completely uninitiated to TikTok? What does that look like?
There's levels of it. I'll start at the big side of it. So all of the headlines that you read about Movers and Shakers campaigns, these are official hashtag challenges. That hashtag challenge is a product that TikTok sells. This is how you get into the billions of views. It's a very unusual media product, but it basically means that you get placement on their Discover page. So for those of you who aren't familiar with TikTok, there's one main page in the app where you see what's trending today. And they'll put the branded challenge in that page. And they'll also create a landing page for you where all the videos of anybody who's joining your challenge will be all aggregated and curated, actually, and sorted on that landing page. And that's this hashtag challenge product, which gives you a lot of premium placement in the app. We'll usually bundle that with some other ad products, often a top view, which is the first ad that you see when you open TikTok. It's a very powerful ad unit. And then a lot of just typical in-feed ads to help support around that. So that creates this big architecture of visibility and push out of the gate that, to our discussion from a few minutes ago, that's what jumpstarts you getting going. That's on the big end of the ad spend, and that is what all of these big headline grabbing challenges are doing. On the low end, you can scale back the ad budget actually all the way to zero. Our smaller challenges, which we call organic challenges, have no ad spend, but they just use the power of the influencer's reach and the cool factor of the music to carry the challenge forward. And that means that The influencer selection is a little bit deeper and even more critical. And the original music that we'll create is also extremely important. You can scale in between. There's levels of media spend.
Right. And you could also treat what you're paying the influencers as media spend. Many companies do that. That's very helpful to know and understand because, again, you do need to put dollars behind it.
Yeah. I'm not smart enough to know how to do it truly organically and virally. I don't know how to do that yet. Not to say we don't have normal videos go viral. That happens too. We run the brand channels on TikTok as well as other platforms for many of our clients. And for sure, when we're posting constantly, which we do for these channels that we're running, some of them do go viral. They'll get hundreds of thousands or millions of views. But also that we don't know how to predict. And it's also a numbers game. It's just because the volume of content allows us to keep spinning the wheel.
Absolutely. And you have a process. Oftentimes the outcome is directionally there, but whether the outcome's like billions or not, that's not always in your control.
That's true. Yeah, there's still a big range, even with Movers and Shakers campaigns, which I can honestly say are some of the best performing on TikTok. We still have a huge range in outcomes that we see.
Certainly. Just to dig into the media spend bit a bit more, the hashtag challenge, which is the product that TikTok sells, what sort of budgets would somebody need to be able to get that?
All in, that type of campaign is in the mid to high six figures typically. And that's covering your media spend. That's the biggest chunk of that. Influencer spend, creative and music fees. Those are sort of the main buckets there.
Understood. Is that ad auction driven or do you get complete ownership of that ad placement? What is it like?
It's a fixed price, so it's not an auction. It's all through reservation, and TikTok's schedule is pretty crowded, so you have to reserve space ahead of time. They keep changing the structure of it, so I won't get into all the nuances, but in general, you do get 100% share of that placement that you're buying. So it's a very powerful visibility tool.
It's like the front page of Yahoo used to be 20 years ago, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But with the opportunity to spawn user-generated creation, which Yahoo could never do.
Which Yahoo could never do, exactly. Yeah. I totally get it. You spoke of the kind of planning process that goes in, right? From selecting the influencers, picking the music, figuring out what the right sort of brand messaging needs to be. You spoke of all of these components. What sort of quantitative planning goes into a campaign? So is there some sort of quantitative model that says, let's go to 10 influencers, each of them have 10 million views. So we think mathematically we should get to 500 million based on this calculation. So is there some sort of a modeling, if at all there is something like that you do have?
We don't have that, no. That would be cool. The sample size is still not big enough. I mean, even running dozens of campaigns, the variance is so big and the amount of variables is so big also. There's so many factors, the size and the type of the media spend, the size and the type of the influencers, not to mention what is the challenge and what's the brand. Some brands are just a lot easier to promote, frankly, than others. So we don't have enough data to do any modeling. That's where it is much more, I think, on the artistry side. We just have a sense and an intuition based on all the campaigns that we've run, all the things that we see happening. Influencers is big, to your point, but a lot of that is more just seeing who's trending in which subcultures. And that's very qualitative. So I have a big team that just has their ears to the ground on TikTok and other platforms to see who are those up and coming creators that are relevant, but in which markets. If we're doing a beauty challenge, it's going to be very different from a retailer, let's say, or we're trying to reach a Gen Z guy versus a millennial mom, very different influencer selection. So that's where a lot of more qualitative artistry, I guess, comes into it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing imply is that the quality and the fit of the influencer and their ability to spark a trend matters far more than their reach per se. Would that be accurate?
That's true, yeah, especially with the paid challenges where you have a big media spend, because the media spend gives you a lot of reach. So the influencer selection is more about the fit, I think, to your point. It's a good word, and just showing to the right people that you're trying to reach that, hey, this is cool, this is happening. It's just different selection criteria for an influencer than if we were doing a traditional influencer campaign. And that requires a lot of training to our clients actually to help get them into this new mindset, as well as for the influencers, because the influencers are used to doing a certain type of work that this is very different. And so we need to retrain the influencers as well. Yeah,
certainly. Again, could be a topic for our next podcast. It's always a good sign when I hear an answer and I'm like, we need to revisit this.
We'll put it on the list.
We will put this on the list, Evan. Yeah, but to keep going on our current theme, I want to pick up on two phrases that you said earlier. One was storytelling, the other, within that context, was the narrative arc. Tell me more
Yeah.
about how you think about these in the context of a 15-second video. And I also ask this because, in my experience, it's been my impression that storytelling can be a bit of a buzzword. So tell me more about how you think about this and what this can look like in a TikTok context.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So one thing that's different about TikTok, Movers and Shakers works across all social. So our approach is different depending on the platform, of course. If you look at Instagram, which is probably still the biggest, most important platform, the storytelling is very simplistic. It's still mostly stills. And even if you look at an Insta story, often there's not a full story. It's more just a little glimpse of something. On TikTok, first of all, it's all video. And even though they're only 15 seconds, most TikToks still have a sense of a beginning, middle, and end. Like they do tell a story. And so when we talk about what's the story of this campaign or this challenge that we're running, we actually are planning a narrative arc, even though it's only typically 15 seconds long. I'll give you a couple examples. I mentioned the Amazon Pajama Jam. You can find it on TikTok, hashtag Pajama Jam. This was a challenge that we ran around Black Friday. Amazon wanted to promote their fashion in general and specifically as a destination for holiday. So we did this thing around holiday pajamas, and there was 3 parts of the story. And we architect this and we script it this way, both when we're developing the music and when we're briefing the influencers. So part 1 is you're sitting there in your plain clothes and you just look bored every day. Part 2, somebody from off screen throws you an Amazon box. We figured everybody has one laying around and you catch it. Part 3, there's a transition and you hear that in the music changes. And all of a sudden you are glammed up in your holiday pajamas. And the music changes in this moment to become a sort of techno beat where you are doing a catwalk, actually. So part 3 is you do a runway catwalk as if you were in a fashion show, but in your holiday PJs, which is just super fun and silly, and people loved it. But the music now sounds like you're in Project Runway or something. And so that's how that all happens in 15 seconds, but there's still part 1, part 2, part 3 of the video.
Yeah, it's a microcosm of a transformation.
Yeah,
it is a transformation that happens within 15 seconds. Yeah. And I love how you describe that process itself. Even though it's 15 seconds, clearly a lot of thinking and planning has gone into that. So thank you for sharing that example because it illustrates so clearly how universal some of these principles are.
Sometimes the stories are simpler. We do a lot of dance challenges. Those are still really popular. There, it's about setting up the choreography, which still has steps in the choreography. We did a challenge for the Scooby-Doo movie that launched last summer. And we hired a really popular choreographer on TikTok, and we worked with her to develop that arc of the challenge that mirrored this song that we had written that you actually hear Scooby's voice. So it was less like a beginning, middle, and end, and more like a fun dance that still has a sort of arc to it.
Yeah. And we've talked about this process that's very consistently worked across brands. Certainly, there's a range of outcomes as you have added the caveat, but certainly you have the ingredients for executing viral campaigns. Is there an example of a campaigns that you thought had all the ingredients for going big, but didn't? And just as important, is this something that you were able to analyze post hoc and say, aha, this is why it didn't work?
Well, we never know. There's no controlled studies in this sort of thing, unfortunately. You can't A/B test. We just launched a campaign last week, actually, with Disney Freeform to support the return of their Grownish show, which is a super popular show on TV. We got a bunch of great talent, including a lot of the talent from the cast participating, and it didn't go nearly as big as we were expecting. And I don't know why that is, to be honest. We felt like all the ingredients were there, but there's just a range of outcomes, and that's just really hard to predict.
Yeah, it can be tricky. Is that a postmortem process, or is it like it is what it is? What
we can look at it and speculate, but we can't draw any firm conclusions, unfortunately. We always do a postmortem, and we always look at how we can get better next time. That's the same for successful campaigns as smaller campaigns, but it is a very organic sort of campaign. It's just so different from, I think, the quantitative analysis you can do on a more performance marketing campaign.
Certainly. To switch gears a bit, we've talked about a lot of the viral campaigns that you guys have run. Now, and you very briefly did mention that something you guys also help do is have brands build an organic presence, post organic videos. Now, let's assume there's a brand or a product that wants to build an organic presence. They have 0 followers. They want to get started. What are some of the most important things they could be doing that you would advise them to do?
Well, it's great that they're getting started. I would say that first. We're in 2021. TikTok is now officially a mainstream platform. I've been sort of tooting the horn about it for a couple of years, and it's no longer optional. I think that's sort of the first thing to say. So it's really great that this hypothetical brand is getting themselves off the ground. I think there's a couple steps, and we do this with all of our clients as we help them launch onto this platform in general, and especially as we strategize for creating the new brand's channel. The first thing is just to look at the environment that they're entering. And we always do a lot of just landscape analysis of who's the customer, what are they seeing and hearing on TikTok, why are they there, what are they looking for, and then what's this world. TikTok is actually a huge community of microcosms. Niche talk is actually a term that TikTok is trying to make a thing. But there's skin talk, there's car talk, every sort of talk has its own little world. And so we're looking at what's the world that we're entering. We're helping a big global skincare brand enter right now. And so we're looking at skin talk, we're looking at beauty talk, we're looking at wellness talk and trying to understand that landscape. The next thing, which is super important, is based on that strategic insight and based on the knowledge of the brand, how is this brand going to show up on TikTok? And this is a tricky thing. Brands are very clear about how they show up on Instagram or YouTube, but they don't know how they're going to show up on TikTok. And this is something that we spend a lot of time working through and developing a clear point of view on, because TikTok is different. The visual aesthetic is different. The storytelling styles are different. The themes of the conversation are different, and the audience is different. And so finding that sweet spot and overlap between what's true and authentic to the brand and what is organic and natural to the TikTok community, where is that point of overlap? When you enter TikTok and start building your organic presence, you want to be really clear on that. Once you are, then you just go into the content creation, and this is the execution phase, which is, of course, a continual test and learn. One thing that I would just flag is that consistency is so important. And we see a lot of brands who posted 5 or 10 times on TikTok. They didn't go viral. They decided it didn't work. But the TikTok algorithm is like a lottery, and you just do have to keep spinning the wheel. And we see that when we're running a channel for a month, 6 months, 12 months, we get better and better, and we can increase the reach and the hit rate. But it still does just require day in, day out posting lots and lots of content. If you look at the TikTok influencers, they're doing the same thing. It really is about that consistency. So that would be the 3 phases that I would outline for them.
Yeah, I think the consistency can be underrated by a lot of brands and people. I think it's more universal than just around branding in TikTok. Certainly, I think the fact that you have to keep posting until really it takes off, I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, well, and then you still have to keep posting. And it is a big lift. It's a commitment. And I think that's why also a lot of companies are hiring us to do that, is because they don't have the bandwidth in-house or the expertise. It's also just a different type of content creation. When you create for Instagram, you can do a photo shoot and you can get dozens of assets in one day that are all in the same world of this photo shoot. Every TikTok is unique. Every TikTok tells its own story. They don't tend to be in asset buckets. That said, it's a much lower lift in content creation because it's really lo-fi production, and we've gotten really good at this sort of distributed content production, so we can produce it.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's a brand or product that's more direct response focused, they want to see ROIs, are there any learnings from the playbook you described that they might be able to use, or is that a completely different ballgame altogether?
If we're just looking at TikTok as the platform that we're speaking about now, there's many ways in on TikTok. And certainly, what we spent most of the time talking about, which is these big viral challenges, is not a direct response type of campaign. There's just not even a click-through option for the most part. I'm generalizing a bit. That's not what we're optimizing around. Brand channels also, while important to have that organic presence, is not going to drive a lot of traffic to your landing page. TikTok does have a traditional ad product. They call it the in-feed ad, which is basically the same as a Snap ad or IG story ad. It comes up between organic content. And this does have a click out to a landing page or the App Store or wherever you want to send it. And this is really where performance marketers spend their time on TikTok. It's a great ad product. It's not nearly as developed technically as Google's or Facebook's platforms are, although TikTok is adding new features every month in terms of targeting, segmentation, pixel, third-party integrations. But one of the great things about it is that it's still a lot less crowded than the incumbent platforms. And so the CPMs and things that you get there, I'm sure you can speak more to this than I can, but it's quite advantageous. And so for brands that are willing to be a bit more on the cutting edge, you can get a lot of mileage there.
Absolutely. The CPMs are a fraction of what's on the other channels. It's still relatively uncrowded and there's still a lot of potential, even if you don't want to go the viral route. Evan, this has been incredible, as I said earlier, and I'm taking notes, and there were at least 3 different points of time, potentially a couple more, when I was like, we need to record a V2 of this podcast. And that's always a great sign that there's a great podcast when I have taken that many notes. This is perhaps a good place for us to start to wrap up. But before we do that, can you tell folks how they can find out more about you and everything you do?
Yeah, my company's Movers+Shakers. Our website is Movers+Shakers.co. It's 2 S's in the middle, Movers+Shakers.co. You can email us through our website or at hi@Movers+Shakers.co. I'm Evan Horowitz. We can put my LinkedIn in the show notes. That's the best place to follow me. I'm always posting about TikTok and digital disruption more generally. So that's the best place for me personally.
Excellent. And we will link to all of that, Evan, in the show notes. We'll have a full transcript as well. But for now, thank you so much for being a guest on the Mobile User Acquisition Show.
Great to be here. I appreciate the invitation and the really fun questions.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
For more tips, pointers, and strategies from the leading edge of mobile user acquisition, subscribe to our YouTube channel right here, or check out our blog, rocketship.hq.com/blog.